Hello everyone, Neff from Neff Audio Productions here. Today I have a video for you guys regarding the Antelope Audio ZenQ Synergy Core audio interface. It comes in two editions, one Thunderbolt 3 and the other USB-C. Personally, I went for the USB-C version as the cost of upgrading my motherboard on the gaming rig that I have would have been outrageous, and I wanted to be able to make videos and stream from both my audio workstation and my gaming rig. And on top of all, my gaming rig is a Ryzen platform, and you know, they do have Thunderbolt support. However, it's not super friendly towards the actual devices that you use. There's issues essentially. But anyway, I digress. I have spent about 2 weeks with this interface now, and I must say that I am thoroughly impressed. However, that does not mean that there wasn't a bit of troubleshooting to figure out along the way. When it came to getting this interface working coherently across both my workstation and my gaming rig, I did run into a few issues. The updated driver for my gaming rig, the latest version of their USB driver, it did not work. It would state that there was no device attached in the control panel. However, when I was in Microsoft Audio, like the sound settings, I was able to see it and manipulate it like I normally would, and it would work just like it normally should. However, it was just not, for some reason, being seen by the control panel. So ultimately, I ended up contacting customer support because for some reason I just missed this troubleshooting technique, and he managed to help me out there, and overall we ended up getting back on track. And then the other thing was when I was actually when I put together my new audio workstation and everything. It's an Intel platform this time. I got everything installed. The new driver worked according to plan. Everything was going great, but I noticed that because of the fact that it works off of DSP and a licensing and management server, it basically downloaded my settings, and all of my effects were there. However, nothing was happening with them. And so I had to go through and actually deactivate the licenses that were synced to my interface and then reactivate them. And then I had to do it again for the other plugin bundle that I got, and not just the emulations. And it was a pain in the ass, but overall they would not show up in my control panel here. I'll give you guys an example of that. So when you're going into here, like, you can see features and ownerships, and then they're removed, and then they come up like this, and then you have to unassign it and then reassign it. And ultimately, when you want to do your plugins and stuff, you have to go into here, and basically it wasn't showing up in here up until I went into here, unassigned them, and then reassigned them to this specific interface, which included 2 restarts on the interface itself. So it was a pain in the butt to do, and it took a little bit of time that I felt wasn't necessary. However, it happened, and I got over it, and it was whatever. But anyway, I'm going to break this video down into 3 sections. One would be just having a sneak peek inside the modeling aspect of the Edge Note microphone. And then the next section would be what I like about the interface, and then the next section after that would be what I do not like about the interface. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Ultimately, I ended up getting this interface during a promotion where I was supposed to receive an Edge Solo microphone with the interface purchase. However, when I purchased it, I was about 5 or so minutes too late to receive the promotion. And ultimately, I got another promotion where I got all the effects library, like all the effects in the library included with the purchase of the interface, which was great. That automatically happened as soon as I registered the device to my account. And ultimately, I just wanted to see if I could even coerce B&H Video, Photo Video, who bought the interface from into giving me, or at least sending me, the solo unit. But ultimately, when I reached out to B&H Photo Video Support, they only could remedy the situation by sending me an Edge Note. But hey, I gladly accepted it. They could have just been like, no, you're too late. Sorry, not sorry. Okay, bye. But yeah, that didn't end up happening. They were very great and gracious. But ultimately, yeah. And about 2 days later, I received the Edge Note. So yeah, I was super excited. Basically ripped open the box, got it out of there, grabbed the license card that was included, and basically they give you like a little QR code that shows you, or they give you a website and a QR code. You could use the QR code if you wanted to go to the website or whatever to activate everything. And ultimately, I just did it on my computer. And I was really, really excited to learn how this thing worked and how it sounded and all that fun stuff. Ultimately, yeah, I had an issue. I did not know how this thing worked. I did not know how to turn on the emulation at first. I didn't even know how to turn phantom power on. Yeah, because there's a button up at the top left over there, right here, but you can't click it. It does nothing. So for the fact that it's there is kind of stupid, because you can click other buttons. You just can't click that one. So ultimately, I tried looking online for tutorials, blah, blah, blah. All the tutorials were for the discrete interfaces that they have. And, the GUI is completely different for those interfaces in comparison to this one. So I had to kind of poke around everything. And eventually, I found it. It was right in front of my face the entire time. And it's this little button right here. Yeah. But first you have to move it to EMU Mic 1 on the channel. So you have to put it on EMU Mic 1, and then you have to go to this little button, click that. This little thing pops up. You can turn phantom power on from here. It shows the Edge Note, and then you get the modeling microphone models right in here. You get a whole listing, and it drops down, and you can select them and everything. So without further ado, I'm going to do this completely raw. Right now, this isn't raw. You're hearing me with effects. Actually, you're not. So, surprisingly, you're not hearing me with any effects on. I had auto-tune on, apparently. But, yeah, I digress. So, yeah, here we go. This is the Edge Note itself. It's very transparent, very clean, like it should be if it were to be a modeling microphone. Like virtually any modeling microphone sounds pretty damn clean and transparent, so that's good. Moving on, we have the Berlin 184, which I actually found out the Berlin models are all Neumanns or Neumanns, however you want to say it. I don't know. But this would be the KM184, I believe it was, or the K184, something like that. But this is what that sounds like, and you can hear that little bit of a up in the high end, that sibilancy, like it's kind of aggressive. But anyway, moving on to the Perth 55. I did not know or understand who Perth is. Maybe it has to do with the birthplace of the company that originally made it. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not well versed in that area. I'm not sure what microphone that's a classic or vintage microphone. I'm not sure, essentially. I'm just not sure what this is modeled after. And then you have Freiburg 6. And Freiburg or Freeburg or whatever it's pronounced as, this one is pretty cool too. This is what this sounds like. And I'm not exactly sure what that one is either. Then you have the Elborg 4006. Now, I'm not 100% confident in this. However, it is a pencil microphone being shown in the depiction here. And I do know that the DPA 4006A was meant for vocals mostly. And it is a pencil microphone in itself. So I believe this is the DPA 4006A. But I could be wrong. And then the Hamburg 40. This is what this sounds like. And ultimately, it's not my favorite. I don't know what it's modeled after. Not sure. But yeah, I'm sure it's got its uses, but not for voiceover. That's for sure. At least not with my voice anyway. And then you have the Berlin K86, which would be the Neumann or Newman KM86, and that's what this sounds like. Then you have the Berlin KM53, which I think KM53 and the KM 54 are my favorites so far off of this emulation. It sounds a little rough in the high end on this one. However, once you put some effects and processing on it, it handles everything like a beast. So it's pretty great. And then you have the Illinois 57, which obviously, once you look at it, you could tell it's the Shure SM57, and that same motif flows on into the 7B as well. As you could tell, that is a Shure SM57 and Shure SM7B. So, yeah. And then you got the Hamburg 211. I'm not 100% what Hamburg is. I was thinking maybe AKG, but AKG is not actually Hamburg. AKG is actually known as Vienna in the modeling softwares. So that's what the 221 sounds like. This is what the 441 sounds like. And then you have the Vienna 112, which is evidently the AKG 112 or whatever exactly it is, D112, which is a drum, like a kick drum microphone. So not necessarily meant for vocals. However, it is pretty great. I mean, it still works on vocals, but I guarantee you the emulation would be much better for its intended purposes. But I digress. Now I'm actually going to go through, and I did my best to emulate like pretty much like podcast sounding stuff. So I put a preamp on here, I put a noise gate on here so that way it gets some extra punch. Everything is actually very loud. I need to turn the output back down on this. Sorry about that, guys. And then after that, it's still doing it, man. So yeah, oh man, I'm not even sure what's going on right now. Oh, the gain is cranked up. Okay, so yeah, there's that. The gain needs to be turned down here, and ultimately, that's what that sounds like. Sorry about that. There was a whole bunch of distortion there. Apparently, I had the microphone preamp gain turned down before I did all this. But yeah, after that, I added some EQ, added a little bit of fun to it, took away some of the boxy frequencies, and then afterwards, I put a distressor on it, and that's what the distressor sounds like. When you do that, I'm going to crank the input just a little bit more, so maybe that, yeah, there you go. Now you can see how crazy the distressor is, and this is without, like, I don't know why I had both second and third harmonics on there. I only wanted second. But anyway, this is what this sounds like. I don't mind it. It is a little harsh, so in order to kind of catch some of those peaks and everything like that, I went through and I added this guy, which is an 1176. It kind of rounded up the sound a little bit. And then I added a 2A. I know, lots of compression. But I digress. Again, I'm sorry about the clipping, man. This thing is a pain in the butt. There's no real good leveling system in here, so it can get kind of a little convoluted in ways. But yeah, I tried my best here to kind of get like this disgusting podcast sound, and I hope I achieved that. But yeah, this is with the Edge Note, and then we'll go through the list. So Edge Note, Berlin 184. That's what this sounds like. The Perth 55, this is what this sounds like. Freiburg 6, that's what this sounds like. The Aalborg 4006, that's what this sounds like. The Hamburg 40 is what this sounds like. The Berlin K86 is what this sounds like. The Berlin K53 is what this sounds like. Again, this is my favorite one, I think, next to the 54. Personally, I like the 53 a little bit better than the 54. However, your mileage may vary there. And then here's the Illinois 57. And the 7B actually does have a pretty damn close like sound to it, to like an actual SM7B. So for a fraction of the price of a 7B, as long as you already have an Antelope audio interface, you know, it's quite awesome. So yeah, you can get away with doing that if you wanted to. And then you have the Hamburg 211. That's what this sounds like. And then the Hamburg 441 is what this sounds like. And then the Vienna 112, which is what it sounds like on vocals. I'm not going to be able to give you guys a really good example of this microphone just because of the fact that I don't have the ability to record a kick drum. But I digress. So yeah, that's what those sounded like, and I hope it gave you guys a pretty accurate depiction of what you guys could expect. I turned off the DSP effects for now, just to kind of, just to bring you guys back to reality. So, yeah, going on to what I like about this. One, there's a lot of flexibility, especially with the ADAT capabilities. There's even SPDIF. So, yeah, you can use those and ADAT, and you can get an ADAT preamp, and you can actually go up to 16 outputs in the mixer here, and you can apply to all of the other ones. You can apply effects to it, and you can do that. I don't think you can add effects to the SPDIF or anything, but you can for the ADATs. So I don't have the ability right now to actually demo that for you guys. However, that is a thing, and you can do that. I do know that. So, yeah, ultimately, number two, everything is pretty streamlined, and once you get past the overall structure and routing of the interface's control panel, you really get to see how powerful this interface really is. It's got quite a bit of routing and flexibility options. I mean, hey, I'm using it for streaming. You guys are able to hear my voice and the DSPFX activated in real time. And beforehand, when I was using my SSL2 Plus, for example, like I had to use a virtual cable snake and have it routed in like 30 different ways. It was really bad. But I actually am able to do all that within this control panel in itself and have it come through OBS as a driver instead of having to go through and create a virtual cable snake. But I digress. 3, the DSP effects are awesome, actually. They sound great, and I believe that the mic emulations are as close as you can get without actually paying a substantial amount of money for those actual mics. And ultimately, for the price of the Edge Note or the Edge Solo, I mean, you really can't beat it. I mean, the Edge Note is actually $150 USD MSRP, and then like there's even places online right now that are selling it for $109 USD. So like, as long as you already have an Antelope audio interface, you quite literally can buy like 13 microphones in one. I mean, ultimately you can't use them all at the same time, but I mean, the whole idea is that you can use one microphone and have 13 different choices with that one microphone. So it's pretty awesome in my opinion, and some people are going to love it or hate it. That is not for debate here. That's up to you and your personal preferences. And then number 4, I heard some complaints about customer service, so I was very, very, what's the word I'm looking for? Leery on actually contacting them to help me. However, when I actually spoke with them to help me troubleshoot the issues I was having, in terms of getting everything all working and everything, I was actually surprisingly impressed. They responded very quickly, very efficiently. Once the email guy couldn't help me anymore and the chat guy couldn't help me anymore, which I believe was the same person, ultimately I ended up calling them, and someone in tech support answered almost immediately, and he set up a team viewing session with me, and he went through and he fixed everything in like 10 minutes. So I mean, ultimately, it was great and it was fast and efficient. However, your mileage may vary. I mean, but I digress. For what I do not like, 1, as I mentioned in pro point number 2, you have to get past the routing of the control panel. It is quite confusing and can be overwhelming for many. Luckily, I am pretty handy with computers and figured it out pretty quickly. However, your mileage may vary greatly here. There are videos online that were made by Antelope Audio to help people understand the routing, as it is virtually the same across all of their interfaces. However, the GUIs differ, and that can cause confusion for others. So honestly, if I were on the Antelope team while they were developing the control panel, I would have had some questions. Like, why are we developing two different GUIs for basically no reason? Like, you could have literally put everything in one universal thing and just kind of grayed out options for people who don't have the capabilities with the interface that they currently are using, and it would have been all great. Like, everything would have been fine. And then you could have, if someone upgraded, obviously it's going to know that they upgraded, and they could have, simply had those options ungrayed out and given them that capability back. Like, I don't understand why they had to go through and create different interfaces, control panel GUIs, for the different interfaces. I felt it was kind of redundant, and it made things really confusing, because like the only videos that I found online for routing or anything were all to do with the discrete interfaces. And like I said, luckily they're similar enough to the point where I was able to figure it out after a few minutes of like figuring out where everything was. But I feel like if someone wasn't, like if a consumer was not tech savvy and all they wanted to do, like an older gentleman, for example, who has been a recording engineer for years, and they're not really used to the IOs of inside the computer, but they can handle, hardware very easily, it might actually be confusing for them, because they might not understand where the options are. Whereas like if you're using hardware, everything is right in front of you. All you need are the correct cables to plug them in and route them that way. So yeah, I could see how that could be confusing for people, and ultimately I didn't really like that. That was a really big nitpick of mine. And then number 2, activation and licensing is a pain in the ass. It is. For example, when I installed everything on my audio workstation, and since I had everything installed on my gaming rig prior, like initially, I had to go through a process of deactivating, activating, deactivating, and then reactivating plugins for them to show up in the control panel to be installed on the new system. It was manageable in the end. However, it was a pain in the ass and quite a bit of an inconvenience. It should have just worked, or I should have had the option, like I mentioned before in the beginning of this video, I should have had the option to kind of like go through and be able to install these without having like everything like, disappearing on me, because I needed to go into here and change the ownership and unassign and then reassign again, which again caused annoyance, because every single time you unassign, you have to restart, and then every single time you assign, you have to restart. Not the computer itself, but the interface, which takes a moment because it's all digital. So it has to go through its like booting like procedures and protocols. So it was quite annoying, but overall, I am impressed with the ZenQ Synergy Core interface. And I'm extremely impressed that they're able to jam pack all of these features that are found on like $1,000 plus like UAD Apollo interfaces and stuff like that, just in like a, I got like the USB-C version, so it was like literally like, I think it was $800 in comparison to spending $900 on the Thunderbolt version, and the UAD Apollo was like $1,000. So $1,000 to start off at, and then it only got worse from there. And the DSP effects, they're very, very good. Everything sounds great. I can't complain there. And they're able to fit these in different budgets. So like you have the Zen Go's, you have the Zen Q's, you have the discretes, etc., and they all fall in different ranges for people of varying skill and ability. So it's very awesome that people have these options and are able to get this level of luxury in a more affordable package. However, like I mentioned in the reasons why I do not like, some of these things need to be addressed and they need to be fixed, or at least the videos for the tutorials need to be updated to include the ZenQ GUI. And it's it is what it is. But the mic emulations sound great and all. So and it's a pretty good audio interface. Ultimately, the thing is built like a tank. It's all metal construction. The drivers are a pain in the ass, like I had mentioned before, especially on Windows. Not too sure about Mac, though, because I never tried it on my MacBook. It was annoying to deal with, but, like I said, technical support and customer service were good. They were fast and efficient, and they got everything up and running pretty quickly. Licensing, annoying, as I mentioned. And the GUI thing, still redundant to me. I don't know why they had to create two separate ones unless, one's older and then they, created a whole new one for the ZenQ. I don't know how that worked. I don't know what their history is, but yeah, update those tutorial videos. Please, Antelope, if you ever watch this. And, if you're thinking about going with the ZenQ Synergy Core, I wouldn't recommend it if you're not technically savvy. If you're not someone who isn't afraid of messing around with settings and messing things up to fix them and learning through that, and you just want things to run immediately, don't recommend this. However, if you're not afraid of getting a little dirty and having to figure out routing settings and stuff like that, I feel like you'll enjoy this interface quite well. I think you'll enjoy it very, very much so. But overall, it will be worth it if you do mess around with it. And who knows, maybe my experience was something that you'll never experience and yours will work straight out the box once you plug it in. I don't know. I'm sure there are variables that made my situation a little weirder than normal, but such as going from a Ryzen to an Intel system and platform. I feel like Ryzen didn't really sit well with the newest driver update. I actually had to go into this thing right here and then go to the settings right here, and then I had to go to advanced, and then I had to, on my other system, my gaming rig, for the update USB driver, I had to do that and then switch it to never, so that way I don't end up having the same issue beforehand whenever I need to update the plugins or whatever. So, or the firmware on the actual interface itself. So, anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it was informative, and if you guys like this video, rate, subscribe, comment, do what you need to do. If you have any other questions, feel free to ask, and I will gladly respond to them as soon as I can.